Hi. How's it going? This is Deliberate and Agile Product Owners Podcast. I'm Corey Bryan. That's Kim Mendrakaitis.
So a bear and an alligator walk into a bar.
This is not a good pattern.
I'm just joking.
Oh, God. Thank you. No better, no alligators.
That was the first thing. That's why I started laughing, because that was the first thing that came into my head.
Was a bear and an alligator.
A bear and an alligator walk into a bar.
I'm glad you didn't continue it.
What's happening?
Well,
it's that time.
It's that time, and I am glad it's that time. I always miss when we don't do a show on a Monday, which is when we record.
Monday,
we release
right?
on Wednesday, but we record on
Today
Mondays,
is Monday.
Yes.
We're actually back on schedule. It's usually my fault.
Yeah.
We do Tuesdays.
And I'm glad you could admit that. It takes a big person.
Things pop up. Things happen.
It's a quote from Fletch I love, that it takes a big man to admit when he's wrong. I'm not a big man. Yeah.
Crickets.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I tell you, I've been trying to convince one of my developers of a problem. That's what I've spent the majority of my brain power on. I did some training, some Agile training, and some basics for people who just joined and who want to learn.
Oh, you facilitated.
Who need to learn. I facilitated.
I see. I didn't understand what did meant.
Did, yeah.
Yes.
I do training.
You do training.
I performed training.
Mm-hmm.
I trained. And the rest of my cognitive energy has been spent on trying to convince a developer that when a screen comes up for the first time, it should load properly.
So is it loading improperly?
It's loading improperly, but if you refresh the screen, it works fine. And
so he doesn't think that's a problem?
They don't think it's a problem, no. They think, well, it's just it's a workaround. I was like, yeah, but it's a first impression, and it's a bad first impression. And I want it fixed. So here's a defect.
Did you throw down the PO card?
First priority. Fix it.
Nice.
Because I want to roll this thing out to other people, and if they have a bad first impression, they're not going to come back. Mm-hmm. So what? No.
I had to throw out the PO card this past week.
Yeah.
I was like, because I said so. Because I'm the PO. And I get to say so.
No, I hate doing that.
I don't do it very often, but when the time calls for it, it needs to get done.
It's a bad customer experience. We can get more users. We can do this. It's a bug.
And they go, no. That's when you say, because I said so.
It's, last resort.
All right, last
card
resort.
of last resort.
You use that card on me. Don't even try. Like, I don't ever use that card.
I didn't say I never used it.
I don't like to say that stuff.
It's a card. I don't.
But you did.
I'm much happier if I can convince people.
But you couldn't.
But I can't all the time. And so I use the PO card.
Exactly.
That's bad. I hate that.
Oh, we're all human. POs are humans too.
Yes,
Corey.
we are.
So,
POs are humans too.
POs are humans too. So have you been reading as you always read?
I have. I'm midway. I'm not midway. Let me back up. I am some way through a book that I'm probably not going to finish because it's just large and a lot of words.
Is it just not working for you?
It's just not working for me. Yeah. I may stop. I don't know.
You give yourself permission. I think we talked about this before. You give yourself permission to quit.
Go ahead and quit.
I don't do that.
Why not?
I make myself read the whole way through. That's probably why I don't read books. It's too much of a commitment.
Well, and I did read a pretty long article this week. There was an article that came out on firstround.com about the 3 tools that Netflix used to build its world-class brand. It's a very long article, but it was a very good article if you're into branding and how people come up with things. They interviewed their vice president of product management, and he talked about the 3 things that he's done at Netflix and done with other companies that he's consulted on to help them build their brand. And those 3 things are the position model. So what story does your product or your company have, and how do you want to tell that story? What do you want people, the emotional connection that you want to make with people? What is it? Come up with that story. The branding pyramid. So all your features are at the bottom. So your actual things your application does or your product does. The benefits, both from the product and the emotional benefits you get from that product. They talked about Nike. They talked about NatureBox, which is a snack company. They talked about lots of different things to say, okay, your product does this, and you want people to feel this when they use it.
Connecting the feelings to the product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then there's something bigger. What do you, Apple has a good something bigger. Netflix has a big something a good something bigger. So what are these 4 things in your pyramid that kind of complete that story that you're trying to tell with your product, with your brand? Very good stuff. And then the last one is the concept summary. So this is not your mission statement. This is not your goal that you see some companies have. This is just a paragraph that explains, the concept in very clear, plain language. It's not platitudes. It's not technical jargon. It's the language they used is describe it to a 6th grader. If you can describe it to a 6th grader in clear language and have it be what people feel when they think of your company or your product, then you've got it. And you're going to evolve that over time. You're going to test it. They go through very detailed examples of how things worked with Netflix and how things worked with other companies. But it's a very good article on trying to build your product, your brand product with your customers. Really good article.
Sounds like a good article.
I've read it a couple of times and I favorited it, and it will be read again, I'm sure.
So you don't have problems reading online then? Do your eyes start getting a little buggy?
Well, that's why I have glasses.
Your bifocals.
That's why my eyes are crap. Because that's what happens.
So, one of my most favorite things to do outside of this podcast, of course.
Is it to, never mind. Go ahead.
I really enjoy, a nice glass of red wine.
A nice glass of wine.
On occasion.
Every day?
Or night. So there was an article that I stumbled across called Being a PO is Hard and I Need Some Wine.
Did you write this article?
I should have. Who wrote this? This should have been mine. And after reading the article, I do deserve wine.
You want more wine.
Because you know what just happened? Someone just validated the fact that and vindicated the fact that I would like to drink wine and I could and should drink wine.
That's right. You found positive affirmation.
That was really nice. So I have earned the right to drink wine, and that's because being a product owner is not an easy job.
No.
And I could have told you that. It's not an easy job.
Right.
And this article is a very quick article, which, I can do.
Yes.
I can read quick articles. But essentially it boils down to having conversations about what needs to happen and making sure there's a common understanding amongst, yourself and your team or your stakeholders. And, you find that kind of just in general, really, that whole common understanding and keeping the lines of communication open and being very clear as to what the expectations are and why that is hard. And that's hard, I think, not just for being a PO, but for being a person.
Right.
In general,
yeah.
And just everyday conversations or relationships that you have. So not only is it hard being a PO, but it's hard being a human, and therefore I can drink double the wine.
Because you're both of those things.
Both of those things. I am a human PO.
And I need 2 glasses.
2 glasses.
Of wine, please. Well, good. Now, today's topic that we're going to talk about is a suggestion from a listener. So Robert wrote in and said he would like to hear some key points to look for in a product owner job description to ensure it's a good gig. So that's what he wrote in about.
Is Robert interviewing?
I don't know. It's good. Robert, are you interviewing?
Are you interviewing Robert?
Or do you want to interview? So we took that and we're going to turn that into both sides of that argument or both sides of that picture. So if you are interviewing, if you're a product owner and you're interviewing for a product owner job, or if you need to hire a product owner, what types of things do you look for? What kind of questions can you ask? What kind of things do you do when you're doing that? So that's what we're going to talk about today is both interviewing for a product owner role and interviewing product owners that you're trying to hire.
Yeah, I think that was a very interesting discussion point that Robert brought up. So I'm glad that he did reach out to us and ask us to discuss that, because I think a lot of people don't quite know when they're hiring for product owner what makes a good product owner, or even as a product owner what makes a good fit for me, to be a product owner in this company. So let's talk about it.
So we're going to cover some things that are all across both. So if you're interviewing or if you're being interviewed, let's put it that way,
okay,
then these are some things that you want to do regardless. So the first one I have is Agile values. So ask the company or ask the individual what they think of the Agile values, or what do they know of the Agile values, because that establishes your baseline. Okay. Because their resume may say that they've done it for 5 years or they may be transitioning to Agile or whatever, but I want to hear what they value as far as Agile is concerned to make sure that that lines up with what I think.
I know I'm looking up at this guy because I have a thought on that.
Okay, go.
So I was thinking about, as an interviewee, you need to understand where your line is, because not every company is going to be 100% agile.
And that's why you ask, right?
Right. You need to understand if this is something that you can or cannot accept, whatever degree of agileness this company is. So that's a big, big key thing.
Yeah, that's the baseline. And that's the thinking. That's not process. That's not tools. That's not anything but what do you value here? And is that the same thing that, the agile values that they've got, the 12 plus the manifesto and those types of things. And the price of admission that a lot of people talk about. You have to do these things to be considered an agile team. Doesn't matter what you're actually doing as far as processes and tools, but these are the things that you need to have in your mindset. So the basics, get the basics out of the way so that you understand where they're coming from and they understand where you're coming from too.
Yep.
Also understand the role that they're hiring for, or understanding the role that you're hiring for. So if you go to a company and they are saying that this is a product owner role, ask them, what will this position do? Tell me about their day-to-day interaction, because they may be hiring for a project manager and just calling it a product owner. They may be hiring a project or product manager and just calling it a PO. Make sure that they're actually hiring a PO.
A lot of times they hire business analysts and they're actually POs.
Yes. Yeah.
So, hey, if you're looking for a job, keep your eyes on the business analyst positions too, because they could be undercover product owner jobs.
And a lot of them I've seen have been doing business analyst / product owner.
Yes.
So there's some mix there, right? They want you to do some of that plus some of the product owner role.
Or product owner /
project manager or product manager or
Scrum Master.
Scrum Master, yeah.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, don't do that one. That's splitting the horse there.
I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Yeah. So understand what they're hiring for. And when you're actually interviewing somebody to come in, make sure you tell them this is the role we're hiring for. It's a product owner. It will do this. It will not do these things. So even if you have a project manager and you don't need somebody to do that, or that part of the role will be done with somebody else, then explain that. So go through the very basics of the role. Talk about your market and your product, the goals for your product or your market. So what are you trying to hit? What are you trying to move towards? And if you're interviewing somebody, understand their product or market. What are their goals? Is this a new product that they're making? Is this a new market they're trying to get into? Is it a brand new market, or is it kind of a sideways entry into a market? Right.
Is it a legacy product that they're looking to rebuild? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you definitely want to understand what is that you're doing, creating.
Yeah. There's also a great article that we'll link in the show notes from Johanna Rothman that talks about what are their behaviors, not their practices. So understand how they like to work instead of their formal practices. Because formal practices, there's a nice quote by Heinrich Niebuhr that says, culture eats process for breakfast, right? So what you actually do is much more important than what you say you're going to do. So that behavior is much more important. So understand where that is. And that, again, that's kind of the core of the role, the core of the business, the core of the values that they have. So some red flags. If your preferences are different from theirs, so if your values are different from theirs, if you believe that we should be releasing software every month at a minimum, and they believe and they can't do that, they can't think of anything less than 6 months, then that would be a red flag for me, right? That's one of these things where it's not really, I don't want to say it's not agile, but it's not the type of feedback that I want to get.
It's not ideal.
No. So understand from their point of view what they do and see if that matches up with you. And again, if you're interviewing somebody and they say, well, I'm used to releasing software every year, once a year. Maybe that's, maybe this is going to be too fast for you.
Right.
Maybe.
And I think, and I'll say this probably later on too, is you have to really, when you're interviewing for either the job or for the employee, you have to be honest with yourself. You know, you can't just sit there with stars in your eyes because the salary looks good and then you ignore all of these kind of red flags.
Or it's a short commute.
Right. You got these, basic things where you're like, oh, great money, or, oh, it's 5 minutes from my house.
Yeah.
However, this isn't fit and this doesn't fit. And you really have to be honest when you're assessing the people and the jobs.
Yeah. Also, it would be a big red flag for me if the company or the individual would be unwilling to change something. So they're not open to adapting.
Right.
This is the way I've done it. This is the way I'm going to continue to do it. And, I've had success this way and I've failed other ways. So we're just going to do it this way and this way only.
Yeah, you have to be flexible.
Yeah. Both the company,
both ways.
Both ways. So that's why we put it there. I was asked a great question, that somebody said, what would make you turn around on day one if you walked in here? Right. And that's a good question because it made me actually sit there and go, what would make me turn around? And the only thing I could think of is if the environment is not collaborative. If I walk into a place and it's a cube form and it's 6-foot cube walls and everybody is in their box and they're not talking to each other they're talking to each other through tools, even though they're 3 feet from each other. They're not standing up and say, hey, did you see the game last night? Or, hey, let's talk about Game of Thrones. Or, hey, what about this? They're not talking. They're not collaborating. They're not communicating. It's a dead space. I would say, no thank you.
Right. And if you want to take that a step further, look around. Do you see sticky notes on the walls?
Yeah.
Do you see, whiteboards with drawings all over them? Do you see people's cubes with fun little figurines? Mm-hmm. Does it look like an enticing place to work? For me, environment is key.
Yeah. That's what I always like. If I'm going to talk to somebody, I want to see the office.
Yes.
Right? I want to see the space. I want to see the team. Preferably, I don't have to meet everybody, but I'd like to talk to them to see how they work because I want to see if it's that collaborative space.
I made that mistake once where they brought the team into the conference room to meet me, but I never walked into their space.
So you didn't actually see how they work.
Until the day I started.
Yeah.
And it was exactly that.
Yeah.
And it was so depressing. And it was just, it's like, I can't do this. And it never got better.
No.
It was just a sad little environment.
Yeah. So again, the collaborative space. And if somebody is not, when you're hiring somebody, if they're not used to that collaborative, show them your space, walk them through your space. Say, this is our team. This is our team board. You see, the guy over there wearing the hat because he broke the build. And, here's the, the Nerf guns that we hit each other with when something happens, walk them through. If they freak out, then great. You know that person's not going to fit in with your culture or how you guys build software.
Yep.
So very good thing to figure out. And again, so we talked about the values, talked about the role definition, the basics of what a product owner does. So do they understand that? Both if you're interviewing or interviewing somebody else. Do they understand the what and the when? That's what a product owner does. Do they say, well, we have a product owner, but we also have a project manager. Okay. What's the overlap? Mm-hmm. Talk to me about the overlap, because if it's something where they have a big market segment and they have a big market research department and everything else, and that's the product manager or product marketing manager, understand that. What pieces around that product owner role are there, and what pieces does the product owner either not do currently, or not going to be allowed to do? So just understand holistically what they mean by product owner.
Right.
If you're interviewing somebody and they're interviewing for a product owner position, what products have they created in the past? Talk about your past products. Get the basics. Who, what, how they did that. Were they a product owner? What processes did they use? That type of stuff. So there's some things for both, some tips for both, hopefully.
So I've never hired a product owner because I've never been in that position where I needed to hire product owners.
Right.
But I've been on a few product owner interviews.
Okay.
So I want to talk about, as a product owner, what are the types of questions we should be asking while we're on an interview.
Okay.
Just a few of them. I'm not going to get to all of them, obviously. I think the first one, and you've already touched on this, is, are they really looking to hire a product owner? Or are they looking for, a business analyst or a product manager or a scrum master role, within another product and manager role, or who knows, the hybrid roles. So it's really important to understand, like you mentioned, what will be my role here? What do you expect of me?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be exactly what you've experienced before, because there is a few, by the book definitions, right, of what a product owner does, what a scrum master does. But it may be something where they're transitioning and part of their role is, they're trying to create this new role or trying to carve out some role definitions for them. So ask them, help them understand, see if it's something that matches up with the basics or the core of what you want. It may not be everything. It probably won't be, to be honest, but it should be enough to go, yeah, I can work with that.
Right. I know that if I had an interview and I was asking about what my role entailed and I said, okay, well, I'll be writing user stories. And they said, no, that's what the business analyst does. I would probably turn around and walk away.
Yeah.
I love user stories. That's one of the core facets of the role for me. Love them.
Okay.
Love them. But anyway, that's just me.
Sure.
So that gets into how much of the role will we actually be doing.
Yeah. So are you going to be writing stories? Are you going to be doing roadmaps?
Right.
Are you going to be doing demos?
Right.
Are you going to be doing customer interviews?
I don't know.
Are you going to be doing budgeting?
Will there be travel involved?
Yeah.
Who will I be working with?
Where are the teams?
Where are the teams? Are they here?
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
I really like a team to be
co-located team.
Yeah. Really like your team to be here. Who's involved? So I'm always curious, how many developers am I going to get? How many QAs am I going to get?
Yeah.
Who's my manager? What do they think about with the product owners? How do they feel about us?
Yeah. How do they interact with them now?
Right. Are we a threat? Do they not care about us? Do they think we're not needed, or are we valued?
Yeah. The same thing. From my perspective, I always want to talk to the dev manager and the QA manager and the other managers for the team that we're going to be working with. I want to talk to them to understand their mindset. I want to see where their head is at, right?
And that's because it trickles down.
It does. And it's one of these things where if you have a good collaborative team, then that usually means you've got a good collaborative manager that works, so ask if you're not interviewing with the dev manager on a product owner role, you probably should be. I want to talk to somebody in the engineering side that has some say in how those teams build software. Because ideally the conversation would go like, I'm there to support them. I'm there to help them manage their careers. I'm not going to go in there and tell them what to do.
Right.
Right. That's
how to build it.
That's what I would want to hear. I would not like to go in there and go, I don't like this agile stuff. And then just bide time till it goes away. Right. That's not what you want to hear.
I've actually heard that during an interview.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Run.
Like, I don't really think product owners need it. I'm like,
okay.
But here I am.
Hi, I'd like a job.
Do you want to hire me?
Yeah. The dev managers are the key for me because usually the QA managers, and that's why I got interested in Agile anyway, because it was about improving the quality and moving testing forward.
Right.
So they're usually, please let me help you, or yeah, this is really good. There's an occasion where you run into when development's done, that's when we test. Okay. It's the dev managers that are usually the ones that I found that have issues with either Agile or process or something, versus the way I like to do it. But that's me. So,
and, another thing I like, another thing I like to know is what their cadence is. How many sprints, how long are the sprints, when's the releases,
how often
what's
do they
the
release?
Schedule? Yeah.
Yeah, is it a monthly release? Are they in 2-week sprints? Do they not have a cadence? Is it a flow system?
Right.
When do they release in that system?
Kanban, are you doing Scrum?
Yeah.
And always what kind of challenges are they facing with the product?
Yeah. Why are you hiring somebody?
What do you need me to do? Because I know you need me to do something that's not working.
Is this, is this a new market? Is it a new product? Are you having problems getting something out the door? Are you working on things that are low value?
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest questions I always ask is, and I ask that to all the people that are interviewing me, because it's not just one.
It shouldn't be. Yeah.
There's always like at least 4 or 5 people.
Yeah.
And I always ask them the same thing, which is, what challenges will I be facing when I take on this role? And it's interesting to hear what those challenges are. And in my current company, my challenge was the application was so large that it's going to take some time to really learn it. And I thought, how hard can this be?
Oh, yeah.
They weren't kidding.
No.
We have a monster application. It's huge. So it's always interesting to hear what they think your challenges are going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And why that is too.
Right. And then there's the other thing of handling change.
Yeah.
You know, and here's your thing, which is saying no.
Yeah. When was the last time they were told no by somebody? When was the last time they heard the word no?
Right.
And what happened? And why did they say no?
That's why they're hiring right now.
The last guy told us no, and we fired him.
And now we're looking for a new product owner.
Interesting conversation.
That's an interesting question.
Yeah. One of the things I like to ask is, what was the last thing you changed in your process? Inspect and adapt, right? That's what we're doing when we are an agile company. I almost said doing agile, but when we are agile, we are changing things. We are inspecting and adapting. When I'm interviewing a company, what was the last thing I like that when I'm interviewing a company?
Yes. Well, you
what
are.
Was the last? You absolutely are. Yeah. This is as much you interviewing them as them interviewing you.
Because this is your lifeline here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry.
No, it was a great point, and I completely forgot what I was saying.
What was
the
last change you made?
Yeah,
in
what
your
was
process?
the last change you made, and when was it? 2 weeks ago we decided that we were gonna, have a stop the release process when the test failed or something else. That's great.
Yes.
Okay, great. You identified something, you made a change. Great. If they say, oh, well, we decided to do a document 6 months ago. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not very dynamic or
changing.
Flexible, right? Yeah. That's a good one. Another thing to ask is about their failures. What was their last failure? What did they learn? Mm-hmm. When did they fail? How, what was it about?
How was it embraced?
How quickly did you pick up and move
how was
forward?
it taken?
Yeah.
I won't say embraced. How was that failure taken?
I don't know if you can embrace. I guess you can embrace failure.
You can, absolutely.
Give it a big old hug.
I love you. You failed. Fix it.
Now
Let's
release
do something else.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then another thing I ask is, what do they want to do? So where do they want to go?
Yeah.
What does the roadmap look like for me?
What's
and for the company?
Vision? What's the vision? What's the long-term roadmap?
And how do I fit into it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How can I help?
And I'm always curious to know, because as a PO, there's really not a lot of movement in terms of moving around to another position, or, what's going to kind of keep me challenged in this role? Like, I know the role, the back of my hand, but what's going to kind of keep me wanting to come to work every day, and what challenges can I expect? Yeah. Not just from, this is a bad day kind of a thing, but how can I grow my career?
Yeah. I like it because, I like the role anyway, but I like the role because there's always a new challenge for me. There's always something else. There's always another aspect of the product that we can do better. We can do a new thing in our product. We can get a new market. We can grow our products and grow our business. And that's what's interesting for me, because it solves a problem. And I really like that aspect of it.
But how can you grow in that role as Corey 3 years down the line? Like, what can you do to continually grow? I guess is the question.
I will give you two examples of what I would see as growth opportunities for the product owner, as a career-wise, right?
Yep.
One is that your product gets bigger and better. So look at all the startups that have come up in the last 5 to 7 years and have just taken off once their product got established, once their markets were, once the customers figured out what the hell those products were, right? Netflix is a good example, right? In 2005, it was a DVD service, right? And now it's huge, and everybody knows what it is because they got that product so good, and it became such an important part of how people consume movies and TV shows. The same thing is true of Uber, right? Uber started as a little startup in San Francisco, and it exploded, and it's so global now. So your product, your little rinky-dink product, if you hit all the right notes and, everything is right. I don't like luck. Luck is a bad word for me. Luck is where preparation meets opportunity, right? If you have a good product and you have a solid experience and you get the right market segment and you start to get growth, then your product is going to grow and grow. And then you keep iterating on it, right? I love the 37 Signals guys. The guys make Basecamp and a bunch of other products because they're so focused on their product and how they can make their product better. And part of that better means taking stuff away and simplifying things to get a better experience. Slack is a great example, right? Slack is doing all the right things and they're growing like gangbusters, but their product has been so good that the product just grows. The other way that you can grow as a product owner, I think, is that product becomes a suite of products and you become the chief product owner.
Right. That was where I was more headed.
Right.
Yes.
So you are the product owner for a product and that product has, 100 users or whatever else, but you start to expand out. You start to size that. A good example is the Spotify model, where they've got a product owner for every squad or team. And then they got people above that on groups of, this is the player, this is the search, this is the browse, this is the playlist feature. They've got product owners and teams that work on each one of those things. But there's some chief product owner that makes those decisions, that funnels that down. And that's how you scale a lot of the agility pieces. And I really like that aspect too. That's what I like to do the most, is be that chief product owner and say, okay, here's all the things that we have to do. And then let's make sure our product owners and their teams that they work with are able to complete those things and actually get them done. So those are the two ways. So growth and then scaling with your product.
Yeah. So you interviewed me.
I did.
Do you remember that you gave me like a little test at the end that I completely failed?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I do, because that's something I always used to do. Was I had a little test that I always gave. It's not a test.
It was an exercise. It was an exercise in thinking.
Exercise, right.
And it was a very frustrating exercise in thinking.
Yes.
Because I think I'd been there for a couple hours and I'd been interviewing, and then Corey's last thing was, hey, I've got this exercise in thinking.
That'll melt your brain.
And I'm like, oh, fine. So he's staring at me and I'm supposed to be doing, I can't remember what it was, but I'm supposed to be doing it. And I remember looking at you going, shit. And later, I was like a curse during my interview.
But that's that's one of the reasons that I did that. So we're talking about interviewing for product owner.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So I interviewed Kim and I hired her.
Even though I failed the test.
Even though she failed my test and cursed in front of me. That wasn't the point. So, so when I hired you, well, let's just talk about generally.
Okay.
When I'm hiring somebody, when I'm looking for a product owner to bring onto my team, either to scale or to say, I need to work with another product owner. So one of the things, first question's always, what's your experience, right? What have you done as a product owner before? Or have you been a product owner? You had not been a product owner before.
Correct.
You were a business analyst.
That's right.
So you knew some of the role, but you knew enough. And what I was looking for was somebody who could do really what I wanted them to do. Whether they'd been a product owner or not, I didn't really care. What I cared about was, could you do the things that I needed you to do? Write stories, understand requirements, work with a team, validate something. So you had the right experience.
Yeah.
And the right skills that I needed, even though you hadn't done the role before. And to me, that's more important, right? I'd rather have somebody with the right experience and skills than somebody who's been a product owner and doesn't know how to write a story or work with a team.
I think it's a key point, what you just said, because I think hiring managers tend to get caught up in the verbiage of the title instead of really looking at what the job entails and can this person do these things?
Yeah. So,
and are they willing to, and flexible and all the other things?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the most important things for a product owners is how you communicate.
Yes.
With businesses, with me, with teams, with everybody. How do you communicate with each other? How do you tell stories? Not user stories. How do you tell something? When I ask you a question about tell me your worst failure, or tell me your best project or whatever else, I'm listening to how you tell that story. Is there a beginning, middle, end? Is there a narrative there? Is there something that I can follow? Because that's how you're thinking of the problem or as the statement, because you're presenting it to me. I want that same type of skill to be able to write on a card, put it up on a wall, and talk to the team about it and have them understand it. Because if they can understand your story, then other people can too.
Yes.
So I like the storytelling aspect or the communication aspect is very important for a product owner.
In sequential order.
Yes. Don't start, well, unless you're showing Memento. Yeah. Don't do that.
Yes.
Let's see what else. Oh, are you open to change?
Sure.
As long as there's wine involved.
I prefer dollars, but I can take some change.
Yeah. So again, what was the last thing you changed? What is one of the failures you had? And what's one of the things that you learned from that failure? What did you change because of that?
A lot of these questions are kind of interchangeable between the interviewer and the interviewee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are. It's just, and again, it's which side of the table you're on.
Right.
And what's your goal there? Mm-hmm. One of the things I really like is the strategic versus tactical differences of a product owner. As a whole, you're both, right? As a product owner, you should do both.
You shouldn't be both.
If you have a scaled organization, you can separate the two. That's the way we worked.
Yep.
When we had our big project, I was a strategic product owner and I had lots of tactical product owners. So I did a lot of the road mapping, did a lot of the business conversations and everything else.
Visions.
Yeah. And then the product owners worked on their app and their teams and their segments that they worked on. So it was a split. They did the stories. I didn't do the stories. They did the plannings. I didn't do the plannings.
Right.
Right. So there is a way to separate that. And that's that's a good way to scale it, is to separate that. But Kim prefers writing stories.
Yes.
I can write stories, but I like doing roadmaps.
I don't want to do that. It's too high. It's too high up there.
So that's the way we separate those strategic and tactical. At least that's the way I do it.
Yeah. It was nice to, keep your hands dirty. I love teaming is what I call it. Mm-hmm. It's really working with a team and writing the stories and planning with them and sitting with them and watching things develop. Yeah. Whereas you are more visionary. You wanted to see the big picture and where are we heading and that whole thing. Yeah, so it worked out well.
I like doing both of them, but I have a preference for one versus the other.
Yep.
So, and that's fine. Let's see. So what do you like about the products that you create, or what do you like about the agile processes? So ask those types of questions. You're looking for something specific, not something general. I like agile because blah, right? I like to collaborate in your terms, or I like to write stories, or I like to see a product solve a problem, something like that, right? So what do they like about it?
And on the opposite, what don't you like about it?
Yeah.
I was asked that once. That struck me.
What don't you like about agile?
What don't you like about agile? And I'm like, I love everything agile. What do you mean? What's not to love about agile?
I was arguing with somebody over why Kanban or lean type systems are better, in my opinion, than Scrum.
Okay.
And it was because of the fact that Scrum, by the framework, has very specific gates. And flow systems don't. And the teams can
fluid.
It's just, you can get a lot more done. I love Scrum. I like Scrum. If your team is capable of doing it, great. I believe the best teams are doing some type of lean or Kanban type systems, but that's just me. So there are some things you don't have to like everything about your agile practice. There could be some improvement, and there should be some improvements, right?
Yeah. So you should think about that because you may get asked that question. That's a hard one.
Yeah.
Answer.
The skills that they have, the background. So you had done some UX, you had done some QA, I had done some QA. So understand where are they coming from? Mm-hmm. What's their background? Are they more technical in nature, or are they more user focused in nature? Are they more test approved, or are they a former project manager who's coming over and trying to be a product owner? So just understand their skills and what they have.
I'm always curious to know if people feel like they're more creative or more technical. That was always a question that I would ask, potential product owners, or not when I was interviewing, just having conversation, because I think that really kind of talks a lot about where their mindset is.
Right. So. Yeah. That's an interesting thing. You can almost see that if they're in a story discovery session and the team's talking about how to implement some Java class or some method or use the latest framework, are they going to sit there and start talking with them about those frameworks?
Or are they going to glaze over and think about the laundry list?
Yeah. Or are they going to go, I understand there's a problem here. Let me see if I can kind of high level see where it is. Right. Yeah. So just technical skills, technical background is a big thing. When was the last time they told somebody no?
Oh,
same thing, right? When was the last time you told somebody no, Kim?
Today.
Besides me.
Today.
Today?
I didn't tell her no. I gave her a better alternative.
Okay. That's
and I
good.
said, we can do this if you give us the chance to do that instead. And it worked.
You negotiated.
I negotiated.
Congratulations.
And we were both very happy. And I didn't have to say no. And I didn't get myself like my panties weren't in a bind or anything. It was all okay. So I did today. I was very proud of myself.
Very good.
Not like 2 hours ago.
That's what you want to hear, right? not that particular situation, but yeah, I told somebody no today or yesterday.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What was the worst thing they've ever worked on? And why was that? And what did they learn from that?
Right. That's a good question.
And again, it's not about finding out what the worst thing. It's how they tell the story. What did they learn? What did they take away from that affects them today?
Right.
Right. I learned a lot more from bad bosses than I do from good bosses.
Well, yes.
Because I'm like, okay, I don't want to.
Don't do that again.
Yeah. If I ever get to be the boss, I'm never going to do that. That's just insane. I can't believe he did that. Yeah. And then again, what do we not like about Agile? So
yeah,
find out there's something, right? Even if it's I like these things at a level 10 and this one's at level 9.
right.
Fine. Tell me about that level 9,
Yeah.
whatever it is. I don't know why there's level 9.
I don't know.
And so we've got 2 resources. So one is a great article from Johanna Rothman, Agile Hiring is a Team Sport.
Oh.
Because it is. Great article there. And then how to hire product people on a Medium article is a great thing to read through about the different reasons why we're hiring product people. So both the process and the product. Very good ideas there. And hopefully, Robert,
We've answered your questions.
Some of your questions. And thank you very much for writing in and suggesting it. It was something that was on our backlog, but you gave us the push to kind of make it next.
We put it on the front log.
We put it to the top of our backlog and then pulled it over into the next.
Yeah, that was good.
Stream. Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
Very good. All right. So if you have any feedback or any other questions or suggestions, like Robert did, please let us know at deliberatecast.com. We are on Twitter at deliberatecast. And you can email us if you have a question at deliberatecast@gmail.com.
So we do hear you. We're listening. We're responding.
Go.
So reach out to us.
Go.
We have a question.
Yes. That's why I'm saying go.
I know, but I just want to let everybody know that we hear them and we're listening
We
to
do,
them.
yes. And thank you because we appreciate it.
Hey, now I'm going now.
Okay, go.
So question, what to do when the product owner is not available? As a product owner, you have one of the most challenging roles in the Scrum framework. However, even product owners have a right to go on a holiday.
Damn right.
Thank you.
With wine.
And drink wine. I was going to say that. So basically I meet a lot of product owners, development teams, and managers in distress when they find out the product owner will not be available for the next sprint, or even worse, the product owner is ill.
You're allowed to get sick.
You're allowed to get sick.
Yeah. So, okay. So I'm going to take this on a couple different levels. Or I'm going to answer this in a couple different levels. So if the product owner is not there for a day, first of all, the best teams that I've worked with, I wasn't needed there every day.
Right.
Right. It was one of these things where if they had a question, then I was needed. But they don't need me to tell them how to build something or to go through their stand-ups or to go through most things, right? I need to be there for the beginning of the sprint and the sprint, for the demos and the planning and that type of stuff. But realistically, the team should be doing a lot of this stuff on their own. So if you're dependent on the product owner being there to make sure that things get done, that's a different problem, not a product owner problem. That's a dysfunctional thing.
Agreed. I agree with that.
So barring that aside, if you're somebody who's in a situation where you need to be available to the team all the time, right, during the working day, if they need to have a question answered and you need to be able to answer it, if you go away on vacation, then you need to set up who's going to be your
backup.
Who's going to be your backup. Typically, it's going to be, hopefully if you have another product owner, then talk to them about the stories you're working on, talk to them about what's coming next, and let them contribute. If if you don't have another product owner, then maybe it could be something you as a product owner trust. Is it a business analyst that works on the team? Is it a dev manager? Is it your boss? Who can answer a question for the team? It may be the customer. If you have a client or something like that, it may be somebody on that side. Just see who you trust as a product owner to answer questions for the time that you're going to be out. Hopefully it's not something like 3 weeks. If it's 3 weeks, then you're going to have to do something a little bit more intensive. Get somebody trained up on that type of stuff.
If you know you're going to be out for 3 weeks, let's say you're going to get married and you're immediately going on your honeymoon.
Right.
That's okay. But you really should plan for that.
Yes.
Have your stories ready to go, have them groomed, know which sprint they're going to live in, and then just have someone fill in for you while you're gone. And they should be pretty well self-sufficient, like you said.
Always have plans. I've said it before. Plans are somewhat useless. Planning is a good activity. So I've done several activities where I was going to be out for a day. So I asked my dev manager accept the story. I told him what I was looking for. The story was complete. And there was no problems when I went away and he accepted a story. So that's fine if you trust them to do that. Sometimes I've done it with my QA manager. Very rarely have I done it with my Scrum Master because that combines the roles, and that's a no-no. Shouldn't be done. Maybe it's okay to do it in an emergency. You know, I was in a car accident, or I was going to be, you know, I'm sick or something like that. I got the new avian flu or whatever.
The avian flu?
Avian flu. Bird flu.
Bird flu. I gotcha.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say is, I mean, that's all well and good if you know you're going to be out as a product owner, but things happen, like you get the flu, or you know, are in a car accident, God forbid, or something happens that is just taking you away for a couple weeks, a month, whatever. So what needs to happen? Right? What does the team do then? And I think at that point, someone needs to step in. Someone, maybe that person's manager, the PO's manager, or, you know, another business analyst, or maybe even someone on the team can step up. Maybe the QA can step up and say, okay, I would know these stories really well. And then they could start leading the charge a little bit. Yeah.
So bottom line is you shouldn't have a situation where the team can't function because the product owner is not there for a day.
Right.
Let's have that as a baseline, right?
Okay.
And then we can progress to, if you're going to be out longer, start making plans about what you can do and the options you have in case you're out sick or in case you're gone for more than a couple of days.
Right.
Or in case you have to miss a sprint planning or a demo session or something like that. So, yeah, hopefully that helps.
I think that answers the question.
Okay.
All right.
Yay. What are we talking about next time? Do you have any idea? It's not wine. I'll go ahead and tell you that.
I don't know. We'll have to look through our backlog.
We'll have to look through our list. If you have a suggestion, let us know.
Because we're listening.
All right. Where's my thing?
Oh, I don't know. There you go.
There we go. All right. These words are our own and are not endorsed or representative of any company or organization. You can find me online at @iscoreybryan on Twitter, or I infrequently blog at don'tyellowme.wordpress.com.
And as always, I can be reached through the show contact info.
We just delivered episode number 14.
14?
Thank you very much for joining us. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
See ya.